going to help pay for your dad to be in a really nice independent living facility, and that's what I wanted it for, because I knew that day was coming. And I was like, if I have the opportunity to bank this money, I didn't touch a penny of it. I put it straight in a bank account, separate bank account, earmarked, my dad. You know, because I was like, this is my duty. You know, like if all that he can afford is this because he helped, you know, raise me and gave me what I, you know, and I will defend to my dying breath the fact that I did that commercial. I sometimes get spicy people on my thing. I can't believe you learned how to Trump. And I'm like, well, as soon as you want to pay for my family, you can talk. Because the way we have set up this system for us means we have to compromise sometimes, and we have to make choices that we do not like. But I'm like, he is now in that facility, and it's beautiful. He's got a 2-bedroom apartment. He's got food that he likes. They can have their animals. And I'm like, I don't regret not 1 second playing a Pete Seeger song.
Come on.
Right? This is not me, you know, changing the lyrics to one of my, you know, songs that I wrote from enslavement. Right? I ain't doing that. Like I have my, you know. So it's like you have to consider all of the things when going into what is this opportunity mean, because like we're all doing it all the time. Has this company just divested? Do I believe in, you know, this person is like raising money from who? Right? But then maybe the story that's coming out needs to be told, but like and every day that's why we're all so tired.
Come on.
You know? So I'm very open about these struggles because like I might make a mistake. I might do a thing and be like, damn, I should have done that. You know, and like, okay, learned. But if you can't say that, then, you know, I think we should just be honest. And also be like, I don't know. It's the most powerful 3 words in the English language. I don't know. It's actually 4 words, but whatever. I do not know. You know, like, oh, what are your thoughts on this? You know, what's happening in the world? You know what? I don't know enough about that situation to have an opinion. You know, other than to say it seems really, really traumatic and hard. Or I don't agree with this overall. I'm not going to speak to the specifics. Or, you know what? This is always bad for me. I don't care what the politics are. It's always bad. You know, like there's ways to commit to what you know, but also be moral. Right? But we just have to like draw strength from each other and these ideas of how do we speak, you know, because the speech has been taken. Right? The things are being redefined. Like, you know, anyway, we're not talking about music at all. Sorry. This is all. I had a coffee before walking in here, so watch out.
Okay, so let's take the thread of stuff being taken and we're getting back, and let us talk about Go Back and Fetch It. If y'all are not familiar with this book, Recovering Early Black Music in the Americas for Fiddle and Banjo, Rhiannon and our friend Christina Gaddy did deep research, put in history, put in notation, all kinds of context. So can you talk to us about, because was it you that coined what's happening now, Black Banjo Reclamation Movement, something of the,
Oh, who knows? I mean,
we're in the middle of a so-called.
we are. It's a renaissance. I see it as a renaissance. It's like it's not birth, it's rebirth. Right? You know, it's just like it goes all the way back to the very first speech that I made that kind of spawned me being some sort of, you know, in consideration for being a voice and this stuff. When I made a speech for the International Bluegrass Convention, you know, and they wanted to talk to me about getting diversity into bluegrass. And I said, you know, they said, we want you to write a speech. And I was like, me? And they were like, yes, you. And I was like, you know what I do, right? And they were like, yes, well, that's why we're asking you. I'm like, okay. And they kept asking for the speech. And I was like, I'm going to get it to you. I'm going to get it to you. I didn't get it to them. I gave it to them like the night before. But it was like, yeah, that's how you do it. That's right. They can't say nothing. Cause I was like, you hire me or you don't. And you're not even paying me. So, right. Oh, look. But that, that goes back to the whole like idea of what is the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've never made a speech. I've been thinking about these things. This is an opportunity to get my thoughts in order and to do this. I don't need any money, right? Because like I haven't even done it. So whatever. So then the next speech that I got offered after that was paid. Like these are the things that this is how it works sometimes. But like the idea was, no, it's not about diversity in bluegrass. It's getting it back into bluegrass because it was there at the very beginning. So this idea of trying to subtly change that language back that has been, it's still so incredible how strong the narrative is of like, well, Black people want to pick up the get it back.
Yeah.
That's why, Hannah's program about Reclamation Project, all of these words are words are important.
Yeah.
As much as I wish they weren't, they are. So this is the Go Back and Fetch It is a book that me and Christina kind of stumbled into. It was the answer to a question, which is the same thing that happened with Color Me Country. And, I'm now in a position where I say, this sounds like a cool project. And then I have the stuff around me that happens. And I'm like, oh, that's how folks, that's how folks be doing it. It's like, it's like some folks have that their whole lives. And they're just like, oh, I want to do this thing. And then that happens. I'm like, wow, it's cool. But I'm really happy to be there now. My first solo record, I was 37. I had something to say. Like, I do think sometimes we focus too much on producing when we're young. It's like, just be. Try to figure out what you're doing, And if you got some young people have very strong voices at that age, but some don't, But like, anyway, I was like really trying to think. So this banjo, I don't know how much y'all know about any of this stuff. So this banjo is a replica of a banjo from 1858. So I'm gonna give you my little spiel about the banjo. Is that all right? Y'all good with that? Yes, I do. If I had that scene, that'd be great. Just swap. Okay. So when I first started, I was 20 something. I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina, mixed family, and my white side, they were the bluegrassers. So like, my uncle was a bluegrass musician, my grandfather was a bluegrass musician, and they came from very, very poor background. My great grandfather was arrested 6 times for moonshining. It's all in the record via Henry Louis Gates Jr. So there's all the it's been very interesting. So that's been part of my life since I can remember. But of course, the way that we do race in this country, when you're mixed race, you got to choose, right? Every time you fill out a form, you got to pick. Especially when I was a kid, it was black, white, or other. And I even knew back then I was not other. I needed to put the numbers down for black, right? And I understood that. But I'm also like, I saw both sides of my family equally. They were on like rural areas of North Carolina, kind of around Greensboro. And both my mom and dad kind of fled that life, and met in Greensboro and got married and had me and my sister. And so it's like, I'm, for me, it was just rural life was rural life. I grew up with my grandparents, first 8 years of my life, they had an acre. This is my black grandparents. They had an acre, Silver Queen corn, and then they had, the turntable and furniture and, my grandma was Alpha Kappa Alpha and, she was a teacher. They the ones that went to college. My dad's side of the family, he was the first one, So it's a real interesting kind of, that was my upbringing. But then my black grandmother watches Hee Haw every Saturday night. Roy Clark was her favorite banjo player. I finally got to see him before he died, in person, and I was just like, "This is for your grandma." It's like, don't touch that cabinet TV when Hee Haw is on. But like, she's also got like blues and jazz records, and it's like, So like this was an interesting kind of upbringing, and so like I thought of the banjo as everyone else did. It was a white instrument invented in the Appalachian Mountains, and I watched the Beverly Hillbillies and all that stuff. And then when I'm in my 20s, I just kind of rediscovered the banjo, but like clawhammer banjo. So that's a different style. Y'all know what clawhammer banjo is? Some of you don't. Okay. So like bluegrass, you know what bluegrass banjo is? Right? Everybody know that. Bluegrass is like, man, that they had the promo of the century. But like clawhammer is the older style of playing. So you use the back of the nail and the thumb, and that's it. This is not happening. It is just this. So, right. So that is, you hear how rhythmic it is, and you hear the fifth string, it's just syncopation in one instrument. So when people talk about ragtime and they talk about, where's in jazz and syncopation and jazz, but syncopation existed already because the banjo is at the heart. Ragtime, Joplin, what's his first name? Scott Joplin, his mother was a banjo player. His family were string band musicians. He taught string instruments as well as piano. Some of those early rags were recorded on banjo first, before piano. The banjo is at the heart of, sorry, I'm about to preach. The banjo is at the heart of so many genres that, as we call them, of American music. But it started in the Caribbean, right? So history is a science. It's an evolving science, right? So it's like there's a theory based on the facts that we have, the data that we've collected, the things, the writings, and you have the banjo people like had closed their minds off to what the actual evidence was, and there's also like propaganda. So there was a propaganda that the banjo was invented in Appalachian Mountains. Everybody knew the banjo was black for most of the history of this country, because it was a black emblem. Right. It was literally the emblem of black people, the banjo. This is even outside of blackface minstrelsy, right? So it was only in the 20th century that this narrative starts to change for very specific reasons of white nationalism, which we can get into later if you're interested. But then people start going, no, banjo's black. It was invented in Africa and then came over with people. So that was a prevailing theory for a long time. Closer to the truth, what the current academic, whatever, the current research shows, and it makes sense to me, is that there's banjo ancestors. The Akonting, the Pachundu, the Ngoni, all of these spike lute instruments all over West Africa. And the lutes in Africa are connected to a larger movement of stringed instruments that go from China through the Middle East, Africa, up through Europe. The lute, the Renaissance lute, is just the oud. Right? Oud means wood. Lute. Yeah. Right? So there's a lot of these things that, same thing with zero, right? There's big reasons why that has all been suppressed as well, that knowledge. So that's that. So then you've got folks bringing either the memory of instruments or the instruments themselves, because there's a whole like ugly history of bringing enslaved people up onto the decks and making them dance and having musicians do that, capturing musicians. Ugly history. So when people get to the Caribbean was kind of the clearinghouse. It was like the majority of enslaved people were brought to the Caribbean. Then you have people from all over, right? Because Africa's an enormous continent. You've got movement from within the continent before people even get on that first ship across the ocean. They won't know the language, the religion, the cultural aspects. There are definitely some commonalities between groups, language groups and stuff, but there's no guarantee who you're going to end up with, and they do that on purpose. Because if you can't talk to your next door neighbor, you can't have an insurrection. Because there were way more of those than people talk about. There were so many rebellions that's why they do what they do: separate, divide, and conquer. Right? Is a very, very popular and successful colonial, trait. So you get into the Caribbean, you've got how do you start to survive this unbelievably harsh circumstance? Slavery in the Caribbean is unimaginable, I'd say, to us here sitting here. It is specifically horrific. So I'm not going to get into that because this is not about trauma. This is about surviving trauma, and that's what music and cultural things are for. So the thing about Christina's book, Well of Souls, I had always felt when I picked this banjo up, you can see the difference, like in your memory of what a modern banjo is, right? And then you hear this and you're like, that sounds very different. To me, it was like, this was like coming home. I had a gourd banjo before this, but this is a performer's banjo, and I'll get to why in a second. But the idea of the spirituality that is imbued in this instrument, for me, every time I pick it up, like something comes out that feeds my soul, that doesn't do it on the modern banjo. I just don't feel that way. I love that banjo, and I played with Joe Thompson for many years with that banjo. But this banjo really spoke to me. And so when I read Well of Souls for the first time, where Christina painstakingly gathers as many scraps of evidence that she can to prove that the banjo was actually a spiritual center for the newly forming kind of Creole African cultural situation that was happening in the Caribbean in these different places. And because you can tell, because Europeans are commenting on it to try to destroy it. They're breaking banjos, right? They're talking about how they have to separate whites because whites keep getting attracted to this. European Americans go, oh, what is this? And there's this resilience that's being born out of this culture that's around the banjo and other instruments, right? Because it's part of ritual. It's a part of spiritual practice. These instruments are very important in that. So the banjo is a center for that in the Caribbean. And then, it's being attacked in these different ways. So it comes with people up into America. And then it starts to change. So, yeah, you can grab the modern one. Yeah. So you can see the difference. So it starts to change. So this is in the 1700s. So the banjo, as we know it, you see it as called a banza, a banjo, a merrywang, a strum, but a lot of B words, a lot of banjo type words, including Jefferson, that famous quote of Thomas Jefferson noticing the banza. So it is known as a black instrument and only a black instrument. White people are not really playing this thing. They're looking at it, they're remarking on it. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they're like, oh, what is this crazy music? I mean, so many comments from Europeans, like, it's just, I don't know what it is, and but they can't stop listening to it anyway. So you have folks carrying the banjo, and then it starts to you have two different modes of transmission. Is this interesting? Is it? Yeah. Okay, sorry, I just feel like down the rabbit hole. Okay, this is what I live with every time I wake up in the morning. It's a mess in my head. I'm also in the middle of writing a book, so I'm like really actively thinking about this all the time. So you have two different modes of transmission. You have person-to-person transmission, and you have what you have when we talk about class is folks who don't have a lot are in contact with each other. That's something that is common, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Alabama, whether you're in particularly the riverine environments, any time where there's people coming in and out. You have poor people interacting. And so the banjo is being transferred, not transferred in terms, but infecting poor white communities, and they're kind of adopting it into their own communities. So this is happening in the Appalachian Mountains. Before the Great Migration, up to 20% of folks in the Appalachian Mountains were Black, right? This is like the Appalachian culture is very much more diverse than people think. And it's not just freaking Scotch Irish either, all right? Yeah, there's a good number, but like they don't get to claim Appalachian culture for their own. That's total BS, and that's also part of white nationalism. But anyway, so there's a lot of different people living in the mountains, but the banjo is being adopted. At the same time, it becomes a commercial instrument for the first time. This is a commercial instrument. It looks like it's handmade now because this is not the modern style. But you have a gourd banjo that was played by almost exclusively Black people, but have been handmade, right? Because each one of these, it's made for the person, it's made for the ritual, it's made for the environment, for the dance, whatever. And then you have the movement to the hoop. So that's the big technological change that kind of changes everything for the banjo. Otherwise, we might be talking about like the diddly bow, like as this sort of, this instrument that used to be, and maybe like 5 people played it. But this is what guaranteed it to last forever, because then it became part of mainstream white culture and became part of the minstrel show. So this is where things run into a wall, which is why we don't really talk about this time period, but we have to, because the music that the minstrels are playing. So the blackface minstrelsy starts with dance and then song, and then it moves to the banjo. And and itself is connected to centuries of actually blackface in Europe, and actually abolitionist plays, and there's a whole history. But the banjo, as it's being played, is actually, there is an Afro-Celtic, European, whatever. There's this mixture of things that's going on and creating what is becoming American music. It's not this idea of like Irish and Scottish fiddle tunes traveled over here and met the African banjo, and then we have American music. That's not how it went. Right? Because you had Black people playing string band music, playing for white, plantation owners who wanted them to learn Scottish tunes, Dutch tunes, English tunes, Irish tunes. And they were creolizing, whatever the word is, these tunes in their own bodies, going back to the cabins and playing what they wanted to hear, right? So they are themselves mixing these tunes, and the Black string band was like hugely important in the creation of the American character of music. So the banjo is part of it. Actually, Black fiddlers were more numerous and more popular. The banjo was more kind of a FUBU until minstrelsy took it, right? And so then you have like this stuff all happening at one time. This becomes very popular within the minstrel show, which is itself this horrific parody of what is a created Negro culture. It is not necessarily, we saw these Black people in Alabama doing this, and now we're going to, it is an imagined idea of what does it mean to be Negro, and Black people also had to buy into it in order to make a living sometimes, so that's a thing that's really blowing my mind recently, is how early this mess was created, So the banjo is like continuing on in the minstrel show, but also like people are just playing it. Black people, white people, brown people, Cherokee, folks like adapting hymns for the banjo. It is just an American instrument. So yeah, when you look at the banjo, you have to set minstrelsy over here and acknowledge that there's a continuous back and forth, right? There's a continuous back and forth of people taking these tunes, but like why I look at early minstrelsy, why I look at 1850s, because all of those banjo, the first white people learn how to play banjo, they all learned from Black people. And then when there was enough of a critical mass, then they could start putting out banjo instruction manuals and stuff. And that's what I've been learning from. But those techniques are coming from a mixed culture, of which Black people own a huge piece of. So that's why I go to that source, because I'm like, then I can see, oh, wow, this is where our 3 versus 2 is. This is where our 4 versus 5 is. Like, it didn't just disappear. It was in this early music, and then it slowly kind of just, as things turn into other kind of musics, and the popularity changes and dances change or whatever. But if you look at a lot of the early banjo music from the 1840s and 50s and 60s, like, wow. And I got so activated with that stuff. So I wanted to know more, like, where is the early stuff? Like, what are the scraps? And I go to these websites. I'm getting back to this book. Go to these websites, and I would be like, okay, there's this website has like the very first notated music of the African diaspora. It's got the Quarter Montees that was written down by actually a free man of color, Mr. Baptiste. And I was like, I'm going to this website, and I learned how to play that. I incorporated it into my opera, and then I'm going over here, and I'm like going to Christina Gaddy's website, look at these little bits, and I texted Christina, and I was just like, why isn't there a book? Why don't we put all of these into a book so that I can use it? That's basically what happened. And Christina was like, well, like, yeah, they wouldn't let me put these examples in the book, Well of Soul. So I have all of this, history backing up these tunes. And like, so we went to University Press and they were like, that sounds great. So what I did is I wanted it to be accessible to other banjo players who don't read music. I don't read music on the banjo. Like I started reading music late as an opera singer, which means I probably still don't read music, but but I know, I kind of know the basics, but I'm not very fast at it. And on the banjo, not a chance, and I'm not interested. I get flack every time I talk about writing tab for the banjo or reading tab for the banjo from these who are like, well, if you really want to be a master of the banjo, you should advocate for notation because no. I'm like, this is notation, sir.
Yeah.
You talking about Western notation? Like lutes had tab. Because it makes sense. It's about the relationship between the strings, not the definite pitch. That because of the fifth string. The fifth string guarantees that this banjo is in a key. Right? It's not like the sixth string guitar that you can play, you have all the different chords and blah, blah, blah. And when you play all the six strings of a guitar, it sounds like cacophonous because it's not meant to be open. But that's what the fifth string means. It is a trance string because you stay. And when you look, the majority of non-Western music is not melodic. It's not harmonic movement. It's melodic movement over a steady. Right? You look at oud music, you look all this music. So the banjo is very clearly descended from that. Right? And it has slowly, that's why you have frets now, because now you can chord. So bluegrass brought it into, you can play in whatever key you want. Right? Because like as soon as you capo it and chord it and the way that the rolls are, like you still have that syncopation. Bluegrass has syncopation, has a lot of syncopation in it. But the harmonic movement is very much closer. The further away you get from the 1850s, the closer you get to European harmonic movement. Which is another reason why, like, this is fretless.
Yeah.
I can play as many blues notes as I want in this, But I'll play something from the 1850s, just so you can hear. And this is a tuning that was used back then. Sorry, I use a few different tunings. So this is a tune. And also, when I started playing old time music, I got told many times, you can't play jigs on the banjo. That's from 1855. Okay? And it's like, then you hear the different ways that I started playing this stuff and I was like, whoa, there's a lot more in this, right? So then you can play it this way. Clave, right? It's like that. You can only get that with a fifth string. So the thumb becomes much more important with this music. And there's so much like $1850s, right? And so when I started, When I started playing this stuff, I was like, oh my God, they can't have this. You know what I'm saying? Because if you want, this is the experience. This is so funny. So I started playing this stuff with my then partner, Francesco, who plays Mediterranean frame drums. So he plays cut, 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 like that kind of stuff, right? Doom tech instead of shuffles or whatever. It's like it's the idea, the center of the drum and the edge. Tut, tut, cut, 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 right? So he started playing, and I started playing these. I was like, whoa! Like, okay, I'm starting now. I really hear, and then I started playing with Niwel Tsumbu, who's from the Congo, and his djembe player, and it was like total mind blown. And he was like, "What are the? Whoa, whoa, whoa! This sounds like something from Kinshasa." And da, da, da. I mean, he was freaking out. And so we've started working on these tunes, and he's starting to write all this stuff on top. It's just like incredible. But then he was like, "Oh yeah, I wanted to go hear, other people play these tunes." I was like, "I don't do that." He came back and he was like, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. I was like, "I know, because it's just Civil War reenactors doing these tunes, and that's why they've been so locked away." That's I feel like this has been my solemn duty. I've been playing this music for over 10 years because it's a totally different technique. There's so much stuff. You hear that? I mean, like, I'm like, who? Banjo music. You can't play that on that. I've tried. You gotta have. This would have been goat skin head. This is plastic because I travel a lot, but my original is a skin head. This would have been gut strings and wood. Yeah. Wow. So you have all this give, and it just like it's a whole different technique. So you can't just do what you've been doing on the clawhammer banjo, and they call it stroke style. So my experience has been I went to the Gambia, and I studied the accounting. This was like years ago. The accounting is a long-necked 3-string, 1 short string, 2 long strings instrument. It's a folk instrument. So even in Africa, there's all these different categories. So you have folk instruments, very, very loosely folk instruments, and griot instruments. The accounting is a folk instrument. Anybody can play it. The ngoni is a griot instrument. You got to have a lineage, right? So it's like these are different things. So like my thought is that more folk instruments, if they made it from West Africa, made it because no village selling their griot. Yeah. Right? You got to look up the history on both sides. And so when I talked to Niwel, he's just like, I want to know what people played back then too. Because the guitar has replaced all of the, a lot of those native instruments that would have been there before, the guitar has replaced them. So the way he plays the guitar is very rooted in the Congo. He collected different guitar, just styles from all these elders who were dying. He can make that thing sound like a kora. It sounds like everything, right? So he has imbued his whole his lineage of as a folk musician into that guitar. But it's like, back to the content, the right hand technique is the same. Exactly the same. It blew my mind. Everything else was different. That was hard. Every content is tuned differently because it's all about the relations between the strings, not to each other. Because they're not playing them together. They're playing as one content player and then drummers. Like it's also knowing the context, right? So I learned, but I was just like, we were doing the same thing, which is amazing. Because there's not that many instruments that have this technique. Most string instruments like this are plucked like this or pick, right? Very few are like this, and they're all in either Africa or the banjo. Now, like if I learn of any others, I will add that to my list. I'll go, oh, there's one in Mongolia that's played this way, but I have not discovered it yet. So I think that's an important point. And then I hired him to play with, you made your own opportunities, but a guy named Mehdi Nassouli from Morocco, and he's a Ganawa musician. You guys know about the Ganawa tradition? So Ganawa musicians, the Ganawa culture were West African groups that were taken by Arabic slave traders and brought up to North Africa. So it is a Creole culture within itself, and it's a survival culture. So I found a lot of parallels to African American culture here, and I just hadn't been able to interact. So I invited him to be part of the Silk Road Ensemble, and they have trance ceremonies that the musicians play for all night. and he plays something called the gimbri, which if you've not seen it, it's a huge bass. It's like a bass ngoni is what it looks like. So it's made out of wood and it's got camel skin on top, and it's 3 strings, 1 short, 2 long, but the short is in the middle. So, and it's played just like this. And everything that he taught us, like, worked so well on this. Wouldn't have worked on that. Worked on this. And even in this tuning, this old tuning from the 1850s, right? So, you know, like I'm not going to be like writing an academic paper about the similarities between, you know, but as a musician, and he kept saying, that's not the banjo of Bella Fleck. And I said, you are correct, Melody. And then he would go, cousins. Because like the 2 of them played together was like mind blowing. It was so incredible. I'm gonna be putting a banjo auntie video up with him and like because and God, he's such an amazing singer. But anyway, so the idea, I don't even know where the hell I was. Sorry.
You're talking about the book.
The book, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just like these connections, right? They're just so deep, and there's so much to do. And for me, it was really important for me with this music, and I'm gonna play something from Go Back and Fetch It. Connecting back across the ocean to like-minded musicians who were also curious, because it's not just like I need to find me a kora player. No, it's like we have to have the same approach. Like Mehdi has the same approach. Newell, and then I got to play some of this material with a kora player named Sekou Keita from Senegal. And again, he's very curious. He's aware of, you know, how to deal with keys and the Westerners' insistence on where the one is. But I played a couple of these songs for him, and he wrote music on top, like as a response, which is really beautiful. So I'd love to do Poor Rosie, which is an example from here, and it's one of the few that we included from the 1850s because it's so old. You know, the thing is, like when it's written down, you know it's already been in existence for a long time. So slave songs from the United States that was the first collection of music from enslaved people that was published. It was published, I think, right after the war, 1860s or something like that. And this song in particular was collected by Lucy McKim from South Carolina, and Port Royal, maybe, I don't remember. But it's just such a beautiful, sad song. And I remember playing it for Newell, and he was like, "This is a sorrow song." I was like, "Yes, it is."
And a quick note about the book.
Yeah.
The writing is accessible, but I know you and Christina were very intentional about it being priced accessibly because the academic books are usually crazy expensive, but this is like regular book price.
Yeah, it's all about accessibility, you know? So that's why, I guess, that's how I got into all of this, was I was talking about the tab. I wrote tab for these tunes by kind of retro going from the earliest instruction that I had for this banjo, which is the 1855 Briggs banjo instructor, which is the first one that says this is how you play stroke style banjo. And so many of those techniques fit these tunes. I could not have written, I don't think, tab that would have honored these tunes on the modern banjo. So really, it's all this research and all this embodied research, right? It's just becoming a thing accepted by the academic world that embodied research is research that is important, you know? Like what you do with your body will tell you, oh, we probably didn't do this because it's really awkward, you know? It's like you can't just look at the score and know that. You have to actually play it. So this was... She wrote this down, you know, and as we always know, and even with my tab, when you write something down, you were trying to hold lightning in a bottle, right? It's never going to be the thing that you heard because notation is imperfect. However, when it's all you have, it is a starting point. It has to be a starting point. It can't be the end, right? So even my tab, I'm like, it's just the tab is there to give you some ideas of how older techniques worked, and then you can incorporate them however you wish. So I played Poor Rosie for Sekou, and he wrote this beautiful praise song. That is how he felt about it. And it's a great opportunity to say that from between a fifth to a fourth of all enslaved people brought over to the New World were Muslim. We don't talk about it, right? And if you can hear this. Yeah. Wait a minute. Did I is this right? No. Hold on. Okay. Sometimes I'd be like, what tuning am I in? Okay. Rosie, bring my poor heart, and then shall be my home. Allah, 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 ya Rabbi na, ding ding ya muleti. Allah, 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 ya Rabbi na, ding ding ya muleti. Oh, Rosie, poor girl, oh, Rosie, poor girl, Rosie, break my poor heart, heaven shall be my home. Oh, Rosie, poor girl, oh, Rosie, poor girl, Rosie, break my poor heart, heaven shall be my home. So what I'm trying to do is to create out of these pieces songs, a new songbook, you know, and that's collaboration. It has to be collaboration. It has to be my work in sort of making these accessible for the banjo combined with, you know, for me it was really important to reach back across the ocean for this stuff, you know, and it's like modern musicians, what do you feel about this? You know, this is your history too. Right? I mean, that was really talking to Newell. So I'll play you another song, and it was a connection with Newell because this one of the tunes is from the 1780s, and it's called Pompey Ran Away. Now, Pompey was a very popular name for an enslaved man at this time. They were always named stuff like Caesar and Pompey and stuff from like Roman history. So it's called Pompey Ran Away, which I love because Pompey said, I'm out of here. And then it was listed as a Virginia Negro jig. Now, jig back then just meant a dance tune. And that itself is a whole nother conversation about how Irish and Black nomenclature mixed and mingled. It's really, really fascinating. But it was published in Scotland, this tune. And it was one that you're kind of like, okay, it's got short rhythmical phrases. It's got this, you know, sort of never-ending roll, which is these are all kind of traits of a lot of different kinds of West African, Central African music, right? So you're like, good, there's a good chance, right? So I learned how to play this tune. I have to retune to the other tuning. I'm so stupid. This was worth every minute of all of the playing that I've done in the last 10 years of these minstrel tunes, right? Which themselves are actually, if you look at it at the musicology standpoint, were communal tunes that were then taken by minstrelsy, right? So that's how I've learned to see them because that's the truth, right? And then later on, sure, you know, Stephen Foster coming from a bed of this communal music, but he's writing these songs because he's a professional songwriter. So this tune, so I'll play it real quick and then I'll give a sip. So on and so forth, right? It's just this meditative, like incredible piece. Again, I'm playing it the way I play it because of the techniques that I learned, right? And it fits just really beautifully. And I played this for Newell, and he was like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh." He was like, "It reminds me of a song from my childhood." Y'all, as much as we fantasize about it, that just does not happen. It just doesn't happen. It's like we're talking centuries apart. We're talking like who knows where, what people, there's so many variables and there's little, so little, right? We have bits and pieces because nobody cared enough about what we were doing. So we have these little bits and pieces. That's why gathering together was so important to me, because I'm like, strength in numbers, right? Instead of this bit over here, this bit over here, this is a story.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, and there's so little. Each scrap has a huge outsized importance because we have so little. Right, and almost always negative sources. Now this is the truth of all poor people. In history, when you go back to Elizabethan times, in history, poor people are only in the sources mostly for bureaucratic reasons or negative reasons. Right? It's a census, or they're in jail, or they run away, they've self-emancipated, right? Or they're for sale. These are all negative sources, and it's very hard to see yourself constantly as a negative source. This is the work I've been doing for so long to make this so that some people's first interaction with this music will be this book and these images, right? Rather than what I had to deal with. So, and for me, Pompey ran away. So Newell says, "It's this," and he sings the song, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! It's beautiful, incredible." 2 weeks pass, and I'm like, "Oh God, by the way, Newell, what does it mean?" He's singing in Lingala, and this is when I just I just had to go lay down. He said, "Oh, it means this. Mother Pipidanga is the name of the song. Pipidanga is a name of a person. Mother told me not to go outside, for my friends would sell me to strangers." Oh. I was like, "You killing me, Nero. You are killing me right now." And then a couple weeks later, he was like, "Oh, my mom reminded me there's 2 more lines." I was like, "Oh, Lord." Because I am strong. Because I am beautiful. That's the song. And I was like, that is literally the story of slavery in one stick line song. Like both sides, right? Because this tune is coming from over here. This song is coming from over. It is literally like the full story, and it just like, and so we do it in the show. I don't do the tune without the song. For me, they're together. And for him, it was so interesting because we did it in the show in Durham, and his uncle came. Newell's uncle, who lives in near Durham, evidently, showed up with his, I guess, girlfriend. I'm not sure. And they were like, because I was like, you were the only 2 people in the whole audience who understood what the song was, because I didn't translate it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But the work of translating is work. The work of telling a mostly white audience what this song means is emotional work that I'm not always willing to do. So sometimes it's just me and Newell know. And people get the feeling. And sometimes that's all I'm willing to give, But because building that song was for me. So now when I sing it, I am praying. I am connecting to my ancestors. And then the people in the audience are getting what they get. But I was like, there's 2 people in the audience who understand this song tonight, And backstage, they were like, "Oh yeah, it's like this. It's like this up-tempo dance song." And they were like, "And now we think of the words for the first time in this context for the first time ever." So like so again, it's transformation on both sides. And that for me is a true collaboration. This is not, it's coming over here, over here. This is reconnecting. This is reconnecting. We need to reconnect, not, you know, necessarily just like thinking about Africa, but the other way, right? So, because everybody's history is jacked. Everybody's history got jacked, you know? So anyway, I am talking so much right now. I'm really sorry. I'm so like, it's just, it comes out of my mouth and I just, so anyway, I'm going to sing you the song. It's all right. This has got to be in tune for this. Bibi danga, mama no bage, bibi danga, mama no bage, bibi danga, gaina bimate, bibi danga, baninga ninga, bibi danga, bateki singa, bibi danga, na mama baba baya, bibi danga, ponaza kitoko, bibi danga, ponaza makasi, bibi danga. Bibi danga, mama no bage, bibi danga, mama no bage, bibi danga, gaina bimate, bibi danga, baninga ninga, bibi danga, bateki singa, bibi danga, namaba baba baya, bibi danga, ponaza kitoko, bibi danga, ponaza makasi, bibi danga. So for me, that's been worth every engagement. Every time I have to see the N-word, every time I have to see these pictures of blackface minstrels, it's worth it for that one real connection, you know? And also they just spending time as musicians together. So that we had time in the back room. I was like, oh, what do you think of this tune? You know, this is how it happens. It happens in the and alsos, in the befores and the afters and everything, you know, of the thing that you're doing, which is why time together is so important. Wait,
Time at about 12:15.
oh my God, I'm sorry, I've been talking for like an hour.
That's just the point, man. So thank you so much for coming here, coming to East Fort Worth. This is Black Side of Town, under-resourced, all the things. The doc has been here for 18 years, building community. So thank you so much for coming into the city. And thank you for your support just as a human.
It's about circles.
Yeah.
And where they overlap.
And where are my Black banjo meetup people? We got a couple of Black friends who have been coming.
Okay.
Yeah. We have time for some questions and just, you know, people wanting to say hi before you have to run away.
What was your favorite song to work on for the Red Dead Redemption 2 soundtrack?
Oh, that's a good question. And this is a good point of sticking to your guns, staying true to yourself. I stuck with this banjo. And Red Dead Redemption 2 came to me because of the banjo. They said, we want that sound. And I was like, okay. And yes, the money was good, but the way that they created that story for Arthur's story, like Arthur was real to these guys. So we sat and talked a lot. So my favorite moment was writing for Arthur when he's dying, because they had a very specific thing that he was feeling, the character, And the guy I was working with, like an amazing musician, like famous guy, works with YouTube, whatever, had written the song, was very, very, very wordy. And the Red Dead guys were like, that's, they can't tell you what they want because that's not, they're video game guys. Like they can't tell you the music that they want, but they know what they don't want.
Yeah.
So I sat with them. I was like, this is an opportunity as a songwriter to really be of service, right? Because I was hired to do a thing. You also have to kind of know where are you at. So I just sat down with them and I said, what of this do you not like? What's not serving Arthur in this song? And they were like, doop, 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 doop. And I was like, give me a second. And I wrote 4 lines. And it's like, that was it. And they were like, recorded it. They were so happy. I've had people say, I want this song at my funeral. Like young people who would never know who I am, find out I'm on Red Dead Redemption 2. They're like, what? So that song, wait a minute, I should look it up because I can't. I mean, it's been a minute. The Arthur song, but like that, that was one of those optimal opportunities because it gave me everything. It gave me a good paycheck. It gave me a really good lesson. And it fed my soul because I love working with these guys. They're telling a story. I'm like, that's all I want, So let me see if I can. But yeah, it's also my most consistently high, like the highest numbers on Spotify. Red Dead Redemption 2. Is the music from that. Anyway, I'm gonna look this up. But if anybody has any other questions, you can do that. Anybody? There's one in the back.
Do you feel like, I feel like Carolina Thunder Drops had struck a vein that America needed to hear this type of music. I mean, is that, you think this is the first, y'all were the kind of the first band to bring this to mainstream America?
Well,
in modern times.
Yeah, in modern times, like we did a lot. We definitely did a lot, but we were also, encouraged by folks who had been doing it even in harder circumstances, like Taj Mahal had been championing the banjo before we came, and he championed us. He gave us one of our first opening gigs. It was for 5 days of his tour. We learned a lot. But he's been playing the banjo before we were born. So it's really important to name your elders and name people who you're standing on. People have been doing the research, been doing the work, but I think what the Carolina Chocolate Drops had was youth and numbers. So the 3 of us were together. And the third thing, quote unquote, I say this in big air quotes, authenticity. Okay. So 2 of us are from North Carolina, and we learned from the last living elder of Black string band tradition in North Carolina, right? That has been proven that it was a father-son tradition, like learned tradition that went back to the time of slavery, right? For a lot of folks, that's quote unquote authenticity, right? For us, it was the answer to every question, which was great because it gets really tiring to answer. So why did y'all get into this music? Meaning, why are y'all Black people playing white music?
Right.
That's what they meant.
Right.
Happen all the time.
Right.
As many times as I've been questioned, what are you? Since I was 4. And I tell people they don't understand how destabilizing that is, right? When you're in a culture that places importance of beyond your wildest imaginations on the color of your skin, being questioned as to what that is so that you can be put into a box, So for me, and it's like, and I'm not saying I don't have light skin privilege, I do. And I try to use that, I parlay that for us as a general group because I know the privilege that I have. But it also was very hard, to be questioned every day of your life by well-meaning, quote unquote, not just white people. What are you, some kind of Puerto Rican? Right? I'm like, And so for me, the answer to that question came, I'm a North Carolinian. And I play Joe Thompson's music. We are his inheritors because nobody in his family picked it up. My grandma's people from Mebane, where he grew up, our family trees are linked. So that is as close as it can be to somebody like in his direct line of, but he was our musical grandfather at any rate. So when we came out, so it was a confluence of things. I was a great singer. Don was a great showman. Justin had the pure drop because he'd been playing the old time music with other people as well, and he had all the tunes. So the three of us together, and we had, by the way, we're not entertaining any questions about this. We learned this from an elder in our community. So you can't say nothing about it, so please stop. And we just went in that way. And so we were lucky to have those things. And also that was our focus, and not being famous, not breaking into mainstream, whatever. We just, I listened to the tunes we just released because we did a re-release of Genuine Negro Jig. And also, we called the record Genuine Negro Jig, y'all. I mean, we just did not have any F's. We're like, you take it like this. And we were lucky to have a label that was behind us, because we could also say, this is why it's called this. We had receipts in the parlance of the youth, right? And that's why it works, because we had receipts and we were unapologetic. And then we made good music and we put on a good show. Like, not in the beginning, we were a little rough in the beginning, but we got really good and we put on a really good show. And, so I think all of those things, because I've had cause to think a lot about it now that we are now in young people's bios. When I heard the Carolina talk, when I saw, which is the reason why we did any of it, was that Joe is still alive. Yeah.
And thanks for bringing up Taj Mahal, because and bringing that to my knowledge, because I'm getting it in right now, ironically. So I appreciate that.
Check out his record with Tumani Jabate.
Okay.
Like he's been doing this work for a long time. Yeah.
Well, for both of you, do you, guitarists like to tinker around with their guitars and set the action and do all kind of changes? Do you mess with your guitar, or you manual?
Nope.
Don't do that.
Nope. I'm like, please fix this.
I have learned if I do, I may not be able to undo. So like, I don't even move my bridge. You're supposed to put it flat on the plane. I just.
Oh, yeah, I do put my bridge flat because I learned that in the Gambia, because with the accounting, when you're not playing it, the bridge is always flat. So I do this on my fly. Yeah. So like this is but I always say, know what you're good, where you sit, and like, there's people who say, I got to make my own banjo. I'm like, fair play to you.
Yeah.
I will not be that. I will not, maybe I'll make a banjo sometime, but I'm not interested. And you know what? I love my banjo. If it got destroyed tomorrow, I would just get another one made by Jim Hart. And I'll have to get used to it, and I'll miss my banjo and I'll grieve, but I'm not gonna fall apart, because for me it's a tool. And if the spirit, and if it reaches the end of his life, then I'll break it into one.
So you've got to go to God, a person.
Yeah, because Jim is this is a replica from like down to this millimeter. And he put this inlay, he found this inlay from the 1920s that had been sitting in a warehouse. He's an artist, but he also makes these band. I mean, this is as close as I can get to the sound of the time, And so he makes these, and so I have 3 of them. So I carry 2 on the road, in each in a different key, and then an extra. So because it's like you can't just be picking these up in a shop. Yeah.
I will say one tinker thing that's kind of small is do you stuff your
My modern banjo, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of ringy when it's just open. And some people like that, but a lot of us prefer to give it like a warmer thing.
It tames the overtones.
Yeah. And after you play for a while, what tone wood do I want, all this other different stuff. You'll notice the pots of our banjo are very different sized, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know nothing about the word. I mean, honestly, I save my mental energy for like the history, and like other people geek out about that stuff, and they make instruments that I play, and I'm like, ooh, that sounds good. I don't know why I don't care, but it sounds really good. But I like lean into it. I'm like, people who know all that stuff, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. But, I will keep talking about the 1880s, like that's
Shout out to our friend William Warden, who has been festival assistant. Y'all seen her run around at Flam Fest. She also is CEO and co-owner of Elderly Instruments, like the biggest folk instrument store everywhere, and family business. And I remember being with her at Clifftop, this real big, well-known festival for old time music. And I was like, we're two black women walking in the woods talking about tom woods, banjo tom woods. It was like, so we just all found each other.
It's a beautiful thing right now. Like it's really happening. For a long time, I was like, it's not gonna happen. I was worried. I was like, but it takes time. It just takes time. And now I'm starting to see, and people are going. This woman came up to me and almost made me cry. She said she's a black singer songwriter, been picked up the banjo, and she said, "I just want to say to you, thank you for taking the hit for all of us." That took me down because I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and this is when you start to feel it. Yeah. And I'm almost 50. I'm menopausal, like everything's falling apart, and I'm like, you start to I started to realize like how much I had taken in by having to engage with this material day in, day out. In my brain, I can almost write blackface songs at this point. You know what I'm saying? Because I know all the language. And I do it so that y'all don't have to. That's the point. You know? It's that like this is so I'm honored to do the work, but it's at this point I'm recognizing the toll that it takes, and just having that recognized by somebody else, I just was like, oh, I would do it again in a heartbeat, but thank you for saying that, because that the goal is that people go, I can take this to the next place. Right. That's why I want to write these songs so that you hear this tune, you don't know what the words are. Who cares? The words were all changeable anyway. Back then it was like sung to the tune of, they weren't like inextricably linked to the music and the words back then. Yes. So you can take those words off, you can do whatever you want. The tune is sacred. The tune is the tune. So, any other questions?
So, I have a question about the clawhammer style. I'm a guitarist, so explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Do you use the nail at all, or is it just the side of the thumb?
So the hardest people to teach play clawhammer, banjo, or guitars, right? Because you're used to your fingers being separate units. Clawhammer or knock-in or frail-in or whatever. Clawhammer is a recent innovation. Stroke style, whatever. The hand moves in one unit. So it's like this. So the nail strikes the back of the forefinger, strikes the one of these strings as it goes down. And when you come back up, the thumb plucks the 5th string. That's it. Everything is derived from that. So it's either. And then a lot of times in modern banjos, bump diddy. So this is the whole different set of techniques for the left hand. Everyone. So I get a whole bunch out of just this. So if I go down. It's just that. Wow. Right? And it looks like there's and the accounting is played the same way. The gimbri, there is some on the way back up, they'll sometimes pluck the string. But it's still, there's no independent movement. This is never happening. It's always in one movement. And that's the hardest thing. You gotta tape your hand if you got it. Yeah. Like honestly, like Joe talked about it. You can tape it, and then it keeps your fingers from trying to do the guitar thing. But you got it. If you want to learn how to do it as a guitarist, particularly, you're gonna have to slow it down. Forget your left hand. People always want to get to the tunes. They always want to get to all the notes. But with clawhammer banjo, if you don't have the right hand, you ain't got nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I did this in a corner in my room for months. And I thought about the different angles. And, I was mostly self-taught. I took some workshops and stuff. So it's just like, that's after a while, like get that basic technique down and that's, cause that's why I don't teach banjo. I'm like, you just gotta do it. Just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. At least that's the style that I play. I don't play fancy banjo. I play get to the business banjo. Anything else? We have time? Okay, last question.
Was there any particular spark that generated Our Native Daughters?
Our Native Daughters? I got an opportunity to make a record for the Smithsonian Folkways label. I went through the museum and I started seeing this stuff and I was like, we need to make songs from these artifacts. You know, I saw there was this guy who wrote a poem about like, how can I give up my lace and I mean, slavery sucks, but like, you know, my cotton and my lace and my, and I was like, we could say the same about our cobalt and our, you know, the stuff that goes into our phones. It's like the same shit.
Yeah,
Excuse my language. Same stuff. You know, so I started thinking about how do we like go back into the past and see the things we're still perpetuating today.
Yeah.
Even as folks who are descended from folks, right? Like we're still in this environment and like, you know, and it's not to say that we get paralyzed and go, oh, I can't live an ethical life. It's being aware of it is the first step, and then going, how can I ameliorate how can I ameliorate the damage that I am participating in because I like to live in my house and I like to have running water and I like to have all these things that we are the beneficiaries of because of colonialism.
Yeah.
Right? Because of the wealth that's been extracted from other countries. We're all beneficiaries of it. So thinking about it in that way, and then it slowly got to, oh, what if I got these other women, Black women, and then it was like, oh, I know some Black women what if it was all Black, you know, that's how it happened. All Black women banjo players. And then it became a band because we had to tour it. It was just gonna be a record. And it still is really, I mean, we're not touring or anything, but getting together and doing that tour was amazing. And, you know, every once in a while we'll get together, play Carnegie Hall. And we played another thing, and maybe we'll play another gig in the future. But, you know, I'm always like, how can I foreground my community? You know, like how can I do this? And that was an incredible success. And the songs, this is what I like to do. Like Amethyst Kia tells this story. Because we were down in the studio in Louisiana, and I had to go do something, and I was like, "What about Polly Ann? Where's Polly Ann's song in the Steel Driver Man and John Henry? A lot of versions of John Henry. Polly Ann picks up that hammer, and she drove steel like a man. I was like, "What about Polly Ann?" And then I left. she and Allison broke Polly Ann's hammer. You know, that's what I like to do. I'm like, here's the opportunity, now go do it. You know, and then we all benefit from it. You know, I didn't got to write all this. I don't want to write all the songs. You know? So anyway, that's the story.
I love that CD.
Mhm.
So I love that.
So I'll finish with this with maybe Georgia Buck like you asked at the beginning, but I never did it. Play a little Joe tune. Or did you want to just like show the difference a little bit, just since she had that beautiful banjo up? Doesn't matter. Jesus. Not in key. Just get that fish string up.
I was supposed to say, I'm really.
Yeah.
Is the hardest.
So that's a really beautiful, delicate style that I never was able to do. So when I played with Joe, I learned how to play banjo playing with Joe Thompson, the 86-year-old African-American fiddler that I've mentioned a couple times, because his banjo player was gone. He played with his cousin, and before that his brother, and both of them had died. And he did not play without a banjo player. That's important. Like, you know, we forget how important banjo players were within our community. So Joe Thompson If you showed up at his house and didn't have a banjo, he'd be like, "Here's some tea." That's all. He playing? No, he didn't play solo violin. So if you had a banjo player, then he would play with you. So I learned to play banjo playing with him, so that the chocolate drops could go play with him. So I play very heavy, those heavy offbeats. It's kind of my own little style, and I call it beating on the banjo. And that's also because I was playing air banjo a lot. So like we didn't have really great sound in the beginning, so just to be heard. And when you're playing a dance for 3 hours, you don't play on that fancy stuff because you know you're playing for a dance. And that's the other thing is like listen, a lot of this music migrated from spiritual music to dance music, so that's a different function. So you know, like playing, if you're gonna play for an hour, you know, straight, or you're gonna play, you know, like one tune for 8 minutes, right? You gotta reduce it to the least common denominator so they can keep the rhythm going, because they don't care how many notes you're playing. The dancers don't. You know, they care, is the rhythm right? And you know, I always say to musicians, when you're starting out, play for kids and play for dancers, because both of them will tell you exactly what they think in the moment. So you know, you got people on. Dancing, like, and you're like, oh shit, what I got, you know. What was the center? Great brigade, great brigade, great brigade, great brigade, all the way left, all the way left, all the way left, all the way left, right back right, right back right, right back right, right back right, on a single, on a single, on a single, on a single, 16 times, 16 times, 16 times, 16 times. How many times when you get home? So like, you know, that's the thing. That's why I can't do a lot of jams, because I'm like, I can't play all tunes. I play tunes with one chord. Like I love it. You know, I've already trained my bass player. Here, you know, he does not play 5/1. Boom, boom, boom. You hear bump, bump, bump when you hear that? You hear trance. Right, changes everything. Changes everything. So it's like how our knowledge even of just like what the songs need, different kinds of songs, all that changes, and you gotta like get rid of the preconceived notions, which that's a German thing anyway. Bum, 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 right? Right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, but I'm just saying, like, no, does that serve Joe's music? No. You know, because they're coming from different. I'm gonna stop because I was just, you know, I gotta show.
We're gonna be at Longhorn Halloween tonight at 8. Nikki Diamonds is opening.
Who's playing with you this time?
Okay, Newell will be there. This guitarist I mentioned. Dirk Powell and Millie Powell from Louisiana. And Francesco Teresi from Italy. I basically carry my own little mini America. Really America. I just don't have an Irish guy. And then Jason Cipher on the bass. So who's played all of the music. So It should be really fun. I know we still need some more numbers, so please like get the word out. Because we're trying to build in here in Texas, and this was our kind of hardest show to. I mean, we could talk about why that is, but
Yeah.
this is kind of our hardest show to fill out. So if y'all could, let people know to come check us out, come for the
Make
opening
sure
act.
these artists come through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I played Longhorn Ballroom a long time ago, but it's been a while, so it's kind of a rebuild. But the band is tight, and we're kind of on the road to Carnegie Hall. So I'm doing America 250 show. And I always say we get to celebrate what we want to celebrate, and that's how I'm looking at it. So
So spread the word, please. We are tired of our artists just limited to what I call the 13 county book tour. And we're in 2026. Texas, we need to be loud. We need to make sure we're always the voices and the ears in the room. So let's try to pack it out tonight. I told Brandy a long time ago, look, give me tickets. She said, Donnie, just hold up. We got to work on some other things first. But yes, I want to see you guys there tonight. The doors open at 6:30, right?
yeah,
Okay.
come for the opening act. That's,
Yeah.
that's the support. He's going at 7, I think, 7:30, and then we go on at 8, I think. So please show up for the opening act because that's
He's
he's
doing
local.
it too, and East Texas.
Yeah.
So Texas, if we want to call ourselves our own country, we need to look like it. We need to start representing, especially for our artists. I go hard for our authors and just everybody that want to come to Texas. I really want to support because we deserve it. A lot of people have migrated to this community, but we have to be the forefront. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate you coming out here. I know we got to get you the sound check.
This is what I don't know why.
If you get any product and you say you got a ticket, you will get 50. If you get any of her books and you say you already got your ticket, I'm not gonna ask you to show. I'm just gonna do the honor thing. She will give you a discount at the register if you get any product, okay? So about 15-20% off, okay?
Yep.
But I wanna make sure you guys get a ticket because she came out here. She didn't have to come out here, but she came out here to support, and she's not only supporting herself, other writers are on that table as well. And then the new book that's coming out, Culinary Country, they gave us, that doesn't come out till later on this week, and they gave us the advanced copies because she was here today. So yes, thank you. Yes.
I don't know what time it is. We're not doing it.
It's a $5 difference.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so just to announce that we have a car that will leave if I'm not in the car,
Yes.
like within 10 minutes. So just if I'm not being rude if I dash out of here. It's just so
She's not being rude. We still love her. We know what's going on.
What are you doing? Good for you.
Excuse me.
That was great.
Excuse me.
I don't think I'll like this. We're gonna try to. Yes. Oh, please.
How you doing?
Loud.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
Good.
It's our third show. We're retired. Like, we need to. What do you do?
Yeah.
Other people's three saw me at Park Street, like, what? Oh, yeah. Y'all were great.
Oh, and I saw Jeff
Yesterday.
congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
So,
You don't mind writing with you?
No, I don't. Longhorn Ballroom, Dallas. Yeah, so it's about like half an hour away from here. Yeah. Yeah. It'll be worth it, I promise.
It will be.
I'm ready.
I just like.
I'm like, everything.
Oh, thank you. Try.
I'm gonna be sending you an email.